I think what's also interesting is it's not only just what's represented on the screen in new ways, it's the space in between the screen. And our next speaker, Dale Hergstad, who's the Chief Experience Officer at Possible Worldwide. Dale, I don't know where you are, but he is exploring those ideas and how do we understand the space between what we are and the other screen, and the journey that Nathan's speaking about between that time and the next time, and how do we now experiment with technology that's beyond the screen and in between. Thank you. Dale?
I'm waiting for image to come up on the front, there on our screens. Great, okay. For those of you who know me, I'm coming not as a technologist, not as a business guy. I am the user experience and design guy. But I've been in this in the TV space for a long time. So, and by the way, we've handed out stereo, 3D glasses, which will be used a little bit later on. I'll point out when that is. So there's a little bit try to experience this. It's getting a little bit challenging with the lean back screens, but I think you'll still get the effect. I spent most of my time in the business exploring space in television design. And I'll explain that. I'm talking here about screen space. And the ultimate question I want to arrive at the end is, who owns this enhanced screen experience, the ones that we're designing for? Who owns that? Well, I think it'll become clear when we get to the end, so we'll talk about that. But my mission has always been about creating a sense of space and rich media in screens. I'm from a broadcast television background and film background, so I've always had at my disposal those wonderful tools that have always been around. It was the Quantel things in the past. It was today's After Effects. But being able to produce layered, rich stuff it's living, it's dynamic. That's what I wanted in interfaces, and it's been my challenge to move that to interactive TV spaces. Those of you I know that you're in this business, you know how challenging that is on set-top boxes, so in particular. So new things are arriving today to be able to meet that challenge. I thought I'd just show, we could turn that down. All right, well, I'll do it myself. I think if I get the right, whoops. I'm sorry, I hit something wrong there. I'm just seeing a shadow, so I don't see this properly. Okay, just 1 second. There. So this is some Olympics work. This is actually quite a while ago. This is from 1998. But in the broadcast sense, long ago, these titles, which you're seeing the titles of the Nagano, the Winter Olympic Games for CBS, this would have been just title cards and graphics. But these graphics today, and many times exist in space. We actually make it challenging and rich and engaging. So that's what that looks like. And another example here, see the layering that's going on here. This sensibility of layering and multiplaning and all that richness that's in here is what we're bringing to, as we can with technology, to interfaces in television. And here's an example. Rebecca, this is Stars Vongo, which was Stars Vongo for Media Center, Windows Media Center. So this is a very rich platform. The platform of Windows Media Center I thought was a really great one. It's still around, but I mean, it really does allow you to do very smooth animation, things that we're used to seeing today on iOS devices and on Android, but this was allowing us to do that on the television. So this was a movie download service, as you know, from Vongo. It looks like that. So I wanted to show you an example of like how we've tried to push for these kinds of rich interfaces for the television. This is a chart that I have shown over the years, which is about, you could call it the history of the screen, the relationship between the viewer, the orange dot, and the screen. Before electronic media, when it was like print media and graphics and posters, so to speak. But I mean, we were very clear that there was a flat piece of media that was in front of us, and it didn't move. Over time, with photography and with film and video, and with big screens, that started to move. So there's a sense that screen is now a window. And a very important point was when passive media became dynamic, when media was interactive, the viewer is conceptually reaching their hand through the screen and moving it around and having access to kind of control that. At the time I first did the chart, I thought, well, virtual reality is maybe where it will go in the future. So we'll actually, we'll lose the screen itself, and we'll have holographic kind of stuff in our screens. And you've seen this before in movies and other things. Well, what's interesting is that actually with stereo 3D, a different thing is happening. So watch down there on that last one at the bottom, that basically what happens is the stuff that was through the window actually comes out into the space. So that screen is defining a space. So this particular, that area in the bottom is where I want to focus on today and talk about this as a future idea. There are really three screen spaces. The one in the middle is the surface space. And I'll talk about that because I've designed a lot in broadcast television. It sits on that surface. It's like a dashboard, basically, for information. Done a lot of work with contents, what I call the content space. It's that 3D space through the screen. And there's this new one, this interaction space, which is between the viewer, the orange circle, and the screen. And design lives in those spaces. So another way to look at it is like this. There's stuff that lives out there, but there's also some new stuff that comes out toward the viewer now. So we'll look at that. The surface space is fairly obvious. So one example is, that I'll show you here is we've done a lot of work for sports graphics, and you see information that sort of sits as if it's on the surface level of the screen. In games, some work that we did with Halo, for example, notice that some of the stuff the dashboard information is kind of stuck to the screen, and the rest of it you're kind of moving around. Maybe some other graphics may be actually in the space. But there's always something kind of stuck to the screen. So that's part of the design as a design idea. The content space becomes very interesting because it has to do with Z depth, and then you have space going on there. We do a lot of tricks where we use what's called a pullback. And in broadcast television, this is some work we did with Fox Network, with Fox Sports. So in a lull in the American football game, the screen pushes back, revealing a space. So it's a simple idea that you could either look at that as the screen pushes back or we pull back and you see this space. So we always realize that screen is really just another element in there of this broader space. So in this case, it's a branded information space. We did other examples, which I won't show you, which were, there was a sponsor space. It pulled back and a Honda car drove through and Honda background stuff. So that space can become branded in many different ways. We also used it for navigation. Some of the more recent interfaces for ITV can actually be used with spatial navigation, I call it. So if you push the button for the menu, and it pushes back like this, and you see 4 kinds of things. In this case, the meaning of these, which the users would know, is this is moving around so well, but the one on the left is a guide system, a menu system. Your apps exist on the right. And down below are your favorite things and kind of a queue list of things that you can bring up, and searches on the top. But basically, that kind of function is a very interesting one. And what's interesting to me is that we've now developed gestural interfaces that utilize that. So you can actually just wave a certain direction, move that, and know where that is, because it conceptually sits off the edge of the screen. This is some work for HD DVD. Sorry, some of this is older work, but this is for Universal. But this was an interesting case where a couple spots you could freeze the movie, lift out the characters. In this case, if you click there, the scene, which is darkened in the background and moving back, that scene is stopped, but we're actually introducing conceptually into this space Jamie Foxx's website. So this is a single space. We're not going somewhere else. This pushes back, and we're revealing the kind of tightened up elements to navigate with the TV coming from his website. And that's a really big idea, and I'll progress with this more a little bit later. Another example here is at the beginning of the disc, we developed for HDTV, for Universal, a common kind of language and navigation system for their properties. This one's for Miami Vice. But a really cool moment at the beginning to promote the enhanced features that were in the disc. You'll see those in a space. So right now, watch it move to the side, and now we see this sort of world of all those things in there, and then we push into it, and at the end of this, it introduces up, down, left, and right for navigation. So that little bit at the beginning is kind of promoting the whole system of extra content that's there. We've also done a little work worked for many years actually with, even before Connect, this is a navigation system that works for television. And one of my interests has been in creating really what I would call sensible TV navigation, because the things that you see, many of them with Connect, are quite, I mean, a lot of motion. And even what you saw in Minority Report, when Tom Cruise is waving his hands a lot, I mean, that isn't what you'd be doing on TV. You'd want little subtle motions. So what's going to occur, I think, in the future is that the cameras that are detecting those motion would become higher resolution and do all kinds of things for us, including, you know, identification, facial recognition, and being able to see who's in the room and things like that. But this is the kind of system that we've been doing. But again, it uses that system of like the 4 points, 4 directions. And what's beautiful about that is, I mean, the 4 directions are quite embedded into the TV world with up, down, left, right. So it really is a natural progression. Just a few more examples. This is an example of a prototype design for, in this particular case, the brand was this little thin circle. So we took it, turned it sideways, opened it up into a space, and then we really made the interface move in that circular fashion. So you'll see this in a second. So you start out, again, the pushback there, to reveal the space. And on the left, at the top end of this navigation system, you would get promotional things that you could be seeing, customized promotional things. But as we move kind of to the right, notice that the elements that would normally be listed as a kind of just a flat list are actually in a circle. So this sort of opening and spinning around. In this case, because the brand was this blue ring, you have sort of a branded interface in this case, so it made sense. But again, it's a space, it's a very simple way of like carving out space, like I was talking about earlier. So these two, I think I might just fly through some of these. This example is some work that we did with EA Sports. And it was a system for navigation in the pregame space. So what we've done here is we've stopped the pregame space, and you have an interface that's actually environmentally in the space. And the left-hand side is the sports area. If you hit the right arrow, you move over to the right, which was the new area, which is media. They were just introducing ESPN content, so streaming content. So this was a way to kind of look at the live feeds. You snag one there and take it with you. So that was, again, a combined hybrid space, but again, it's a space that it was occupied by the interface in this case. Multiplicity, for me, is what I term the new way of enhanced television. Certainly, the audience can use other devices, your laptop, a mobile phone, an iPad, to access other information about what's going on in the show. But you know, many of you, and like I've done a lot of work on, what does that mean if it's on that screen? So in this case, the concept is, again, a pushback. So you push back a little bit, revealing stuff, but as you push back further, it reveals kind of a system for presenting on the right-hand side of the screen, you know, simplified apps, so to speak, that they're based on information about that show. That's always accessible. So what I like about it is the continuity and the sort of transition, which kind of keeps the user connected in that case. These are some examples of some other branded things, but all working with a common system. And here's an example of showing how that might work this was showing, you started out with like a mini guide, and we'll change the channel in a moment. But the cool thing is that stuff that's coming up on the right was a means in this particular case to promote some of the other stuff. Those are links. You move over to the right, and it shows you we've gone into the BBC News. And now as it opens up further, we progressively move into that content. So that half the screen on the right is really part of the BBC News site. So another way of doing, I mean, you could also go to things, in that case it was related to what was on the show, but in this case, if you just want to look at your Twitter feed, for example, and see what's going on, could or maybe is and maybe is not related to what's going on the TV screen. But this sort of sensibility of like, just that scale move. I mean, we've worked with a lot of the set-top box manufacturers, and to me, it's such an important experience to watch it scale the video back, not just jump, so that I think that's a really critical element. The new frontier is clearly this interaction space. So that's accomplished by different means, by Stereo 3D, by tablets, smartphones. So let's look at the Stereo 3D one. And it does something like this. It sort of pushes back from there, from the screen, and it lifts out the interface elements to you. If you get your glasses ready, I'm going to look at those in a second. It's too blown out to actually see. I was just showing a reference here. These are, I'd actually mocked this idea up in 1999, so I'm very pleased that we're launching one of our first products that does this effect. So let's see, show you what that looks like. So for video games, so put your glasses on, and in this case, we're playing a video game, and then this is a Need for Speed racing game. So we stop it, and then we're going to lift out a dimensional interface. So hopefully that actually has some, it's tilted back and it's a little fuzzy. So I'm going to do that again so you can kind of see it lift out. But certain elements push back and other ones come forward. The elements that are on the right are notifications for what you have. I mean, if you move your hand up, move it down a bit further, you can see there's people who've sent a message to you and other kinds of things like that. So another example for television, this one relates to that little example I showed you. So if you're watching TV, across the bottom, you've pulled in a list of, this may be a playlist of things that you want to watch. So you lift it out like this, then you take your hand and you move it, move your hand to the right like this, or to the left, and then touch another one and you change the channel. So a simple action, and that's a very profound interface. There's a lot behind it. It seems very simple. But if a very smart system has been gathering the kinds of things that you want to look at and you're interested, your sort of channel list that you want to, you just move that around and change it at any moment. So by using simple motions from your hand. Another example is, this is bringing web information. I love this idea that in this particular case is watching a soccer game on Champions League. So this is just taking the Champions League website, take the background out, and bring in their website into this. So you're actually seeing this either through Stereo 3D, but you're accessing streaming video and other things that are accessible on the website. So it's just bringing the web experience when you want it, and other information, other scores and things like that, and then standings in the league like that. And probably the most interesting example is I really believe that somewhere down the road in the near future we'll advance our like Google Glass and other kinds like that, which are our augmented reality glasses. So you're not holding your phone or something, you're actually looking through and seeing stuff. So it could look something like this. So this again is an example of, we're going to watch a TV show, but this show has a website. So we're going to wave our hand, bring it in. And this, again, is you take the background out, bring it in, lay it out in space. We're checking out a certain character in there. We can check something else out. This is a little newspaper kind of news thing that's inside of there. When we're done, you wave your hand and it goes out. So that is, I think, could be an experience in the future, that we see, your entire room becomes a space to combine web information that's there. So the question is, who owns this interaction space? Brands have clearly, in this little diagram there, you can see that brands, and I do a lot of work in this space, I know all the rules, I know all the business rules and all the business cases. The audience doesn't care about that, but you guys care about it, but the audience has already moved beyond that. I mean, so that battleground of like, you can't put this next to that because of this sponsor, and all that stuff exists through the screen over there in the world that exists now on the screen. And perhaps some of it sneaks out into 3D. But the audience, like for me, I'm watching with my iPad or my laptop. I go to any website I want, and I'm pairing that information exactly as I want to do it. No one's telling me that I can't watch this against that thing. So those rules are gone now on the other side. And then particularly if you're moving the orange area into that space, that user-controlled space is actually quite interesting now. So if you look at that space from the side, the brands control the stuff that's built into the content. But the user has complete control over this other experience on these other devices. So it's a new world. It's combining the TV and internet. I have 6 points I want to make about that. One is a new attitude. In this space, I mean, of new things, I've always had to tell my team we have to be flexible and fearless because it really is, it's always difficult. I mean, in a tough economy, the money that I can bring to the company is long-term. It's a long-term investment, and you want short-term. Everybody wants short-term for now. So being fearless and what I've had to learn to do to kind of play in this space. And it means that new design teams, if they're playing this, are actually designing in 3D space. This is not the flat web world anymore, or even like the typical ITV space. So It also means utilizing new input methods. I've already pointed out several. I mean, I think that touchpads, I think the most interesting thing that I could foresee is, I'm a big fan of the iPod Nano, the little small thing. It's about this big. It's an iPod. It's about that big. That has a, it's essentially a little trackpad. So you have touch gesture on it. Once miniaturization has occurred and that will now talk, I mean, that's a wonderful little tracking device to kind of interface with this. So, because the question is going to be how do you interface and navigate with that stuff that you're seeing in the space. Also, in terms of, I really believe that the future is about user-generated, dynamic and interesting channels of things, groupings of things together that I want to watch. I mean, I watch that way now. I jump from channel to channel to channel onto things and put an experience together. But I think that future channels will be developed to allow me to do that, and maybe these things that are in the space can help me do that, to make that experience a very localized, personal experience. I've talked a lot also about the ideal of an Uber team, a new Uber design team, that basically, rather than having media companies with silos, that you've got your mobile group here, you've got your web group there, you've got your broadcast group over here, and somebody else over there in the print, that actually, in the digital world of the future, I think that there's a single design, very smart design team that could design behaviors into design that would actually, even in an automated way, move to other devices, saving lots of money, and actually making this whole thing better. So I'm looking to build that kind of team, which is a true team that understands all those things together. Any and all platforms and a singular vision. The last thing is, which I see in companies, I've worked for so many large companies, is we've got to get rid of the silos. I mean, we all talk about putting this unique experience together that flows across different devices. I work in companies, and there's a large mobile group over here in one building, and somebody else is over in this building, and they actually don't talk to each other sometimes. I mean, so that's got to go away. And whoever figures that out will win in this space, in my opinion. So thanks.
Does anybody have any questions? Way over there. Who's that? Laura? Go ahead, keep going. Go ahead. You'll get there eventually.
Hey, Dale, do you see any future or value in holographic technologies as like another way to do the 3D, or to bring in 3D gestures and interfaces in, like projection as opposed to?
Yes, I do. I mean, and some of the work that I've been doing, I'm thinking less about how it got there, what the technology was, because it kind of looks the same, in some of these cases. I don't really care. I mean, I think the only difference in the different processes is that if you worked in true stereo 3D, it's trimmed by, it can't extend things into the room. It's going to be trimmed by the screen. So what's wonderful about, if it's true holographic projection of some kind, there's different kinds of that as well, or what I like is coming from the glasses, some future glasses. So you just put stuff in there that again, it's in the space, it relates, it connects somehow. So.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Do I take my computer? Do I take my own computer out?
Yes, yes. You take